As I backed out of my driveway one Memorial Day weekend, my then 3-year-old daughter darted behind my car and I hit her. The incident happened after I told Kate I was going out, and she decided that she wanted to go with me. Without telling the babysitter, she ran out the front door to try to get into my car. Within a few moments of starting to back up, I heard screams. Initially, I thought it was the neighbor's children playing, and then I realized that the screams were not screams of joy, but rather screams of terror. I had stopped the car, jumped out, and ran to the back. I found my daughter coming to her feet, her face covered in blood, her clothes torn, her shoulder and legs bleeding, and she was crying. She was screaming and asking me why I had hit her with the car. I had heard stories about things like this happening before, but this is the kind of thing that happens to other people, not to me, or so I thought. Safety is paramount in the way I live my life and I raise my children, and I wasn't sure exactly what kind of people this happened to, but I was sure it would never happen to me. Hopefully you cannot imagine how immediate and completely consuming the guilt is when you injure your own child like this. Thank God for my neighbors who held me while I screamed and cried, and for the ones who tended to my daughter while we waited for the ambulance. After being rushed to the ER in the ambulance, on a backboard and in a neck brace, undergoing an entire workup by the trauma team, including full-body x-rays, it was determined that Kate had escaped the incident with nothing more than abrasions. It looked much worse than it was. Later, my neighbor recounted what she saw and told me that Kate had been struck by the right rear corner of the car and was knocked to the ground directly behind the tire. A few more inches would have meant a very different outcome, a thought that continues to haunt me on a daily basis. While Kate's physical injuries have long since healed, my emotional injuries continue to plague me every day. I've always made safety a priority in raising my children, and as a rule, I made a practice of turning around at the bottom of my driveway instead of backing out. But that day I had parked my car at the top of the driveway so that my children could safely ride their bikes in the drive without the risk of a car entering from the street. That necessitated me reversing out of the driveway rather than turning around at the bottom, as I usually do. With every vehicle, not just SUVs, there's a large area behind the vehicle that is completely blind. What happened to me that day is my daughter entered the blind zone behind my car after I got into the driver's seat while I wasn't looking. I had assumed because there were no children behind my car when I got into it, that this was still the case when I began to move just a few seconds later. I cannot stress enough the importance of checking your surroundings before getting into the car and continuing to monitor your surroundings, as well as avoiding parking situations that cause you to need to back out of a spot. I've been told by the experts that in relation to what happened in our driveway, the word accident does not apply, that in fact, every injury like this is preventable. I've spent a great deal of time researching and learning about preventing driveway injuries since my daughter was hurt. It's said that redundant layers of safety is the best approach to preventing a tragedy. I knew that night in the hospital that I had to take this incident and make something positive come of it. That's why I'm sharing this story with you, so that you will never ever think this is the kind of thing that happens to other people. It can so easily happen to you. Please, whether you are a parent or not, make choices necessary to prevent an incident like this one from changing your life forever.